I'll ask two questions from the audience and then an opportunity for a closing statement from everybody up here. Waris, if you could prepare yourself, please. We've already mentioned disruptions. There's disruptions in school, there's disruptions at universities. These are our senior learners making up most of the crowd this evening, grade 11s and 12s for the most part. Some of them at the end of this year going to university. They've got some concerns. Maurice is going to voice one of them.
Well, in light of the recent student riots that I know you only discussed, but at UKZN and DUT, what we find is that there's a growing amount of student disobedience in the universities. And in fact, 70% of those strikers essentially are first-year dropouts that are seeking to bully the universities into re-accepting them. And we find that they're largely succeeding in replacing fresh matriculants. So it could actually be me that is now taken out of the course owing to these strikers. So I guess my question would be to the parties here, should there be more of a concerted effort to ensure that our university lectures aren't being A, disrupted, or B, essentially bullied by the students? What is your take on this issue?
I'm going to give the ruling part to the last one in the closing, so if you'd like to start with this question.
Okay. Guilty as charged. I'm the president of the South African Students' Congress that leads a number of these protests that we see in our universities. The issue is, it's not correct to say that people who are leading these protests are first-year dropouts. It is not the truth. Actually, university policies, very few university policies allow for first years to be excluded, for instance. You give first years, you give a student about 3 semesters, which it's about their second year in their first semester to really start to exclude a student who's not performing, just to deal with it. But the reality is that students in universities are facing serious challenges. If you can go to the residents, and the major issue is accommodation. Accommodation is a crisis in our university system. There has been a report that has been released by the Department of Higher Education and Training, which shows us that most of the residences and the conditions of these residences are dilapidated in our institutions of higher learning. The other issue is the issue of funding. Universities are unfortunately increasing fees unreasonably. Secondly, the current funding model that is being reviewed of universities is skewed to benefit universities that are advanced because it works on research output. So I will not do that again, you may just complicate it for yourselves. But those are the main issues that are really faced, that students are really facing, and we need to deal with them. But the issue that you are raising, we can't have students who are protesting, vandalizing our properties in our universities. And we always say this to our members, and we do discipline our members. For instance, it happened in the University of Zululand a couple of years ago, when our activists, our members, when taking responsibility for this, went and when they were protesting on genuine issues, the issues are genuine. They protested on genuine issues, they destroyed a library, they destroyed even a chapel where they go and pray. And we had to expel those people out of the South African Students' Congress. But if we don't, even if we can say we put rules and we expel these students, if we don't deal with the systemic issues that they are raising, issues of adequate student housing, issues of adequate teaching resources, we are not going to be able to deal with the whole question of violent student protest. And the reality is that we need to say to university student leadership and the universities, talk to each other, open the doors of communication, really deal with the questions that your institution is facing. But as a departing point, we should conclude. We believe that South Africans have seen the progress that we have made as the ANC government. We have been very honest with the challenges that South Africa faces because we understand that it's important for us to be critical, self-critical. Most of the criticism that happens about the African National Congress is actually exposed by the African National Congress itself. And we are saying that this is an organization, a vehicle for South Africans, which is already there, which has challenges. What is important is for South Africans to be part of this organization, to really ensure that we are within the ranks of the ANC, the educated, not sit outside of the ANC and say, well, the ANC is corrupt. You must be in the ANC because the ANC is a true representation of South Africans. It is in every single one to influence, to change the ANC, to ensure that we become the leaders that we want to see in society. And I invite everybody to join us. And we want to say, we want to continue to increase access, but we really want to focus over the next 5 years on improving quality of our education. We must focus on improving quality. We want everybody to be involved, opposition parties, we want the community to be involved, in the project of taking education and making it a real societal issue. And we think that with those words, we want our South Africans, one body, even when they lose elections after the 7th of May, to come and partner with us to ensure that we go and expose principals who are inefficient, that we go and expose school governing bodies that are not doing the work. We must be on the ground in the communities by going hand in hand to ensure that we improve our education system in the Western Cape, in Gauteng, and everywhere else. Thank you.
While you've been called out, I'll let you respond, and also to respond to the question.
My colleague spoke for a long time, so maybe one of the question.
About rights at universities.
Right, okay.
How do we stop that? How do we make sure that lectures carry on without disruption?
So, the problem that we have at universities is that we have lots of students that go to them, but as my colleague has said, might only have funding maybe just for their tuition, but not for their accommodation, not for food. And so even if they're academically qualified some years, they might be excluded or they might be excluded for a portion of those things, and so aren't able to actually get quality education, which is why we have some young students striking. Now, I don't think, again, that should be the problem of the students. If you worked hard and you're able to be at that university, you should be able to study there, get food there, get your books there. What we have is a system of NSFAS that is funded and modeled in an incorrect way. Because what we currently have is our government's taking the money and giving it to the universities, who then, again, because of a lot of corruption that we see happening and filtering into these institutions, decides in very ad hoc manner sometimes how to actually access and give those funding out. So what we would suggest as a Democratic Alliance, and I made this suggestion and I did a whole thing in 2010 to the Minister of Higher Education, is that that money should be going into the pockets of students who would best know what their needs were and how to actually make sure that they would be able to pay for what they needed and not use it for other things and not have the university also take the money from them. Because then what you're able to do is have students who can fund their own education without having to wait for grants and bailouts from the university every single year. Obviously based on them being able to qualify academically and not just failing and continuing to be in the system and then taking you out of school. So the funding model that we have currently now is not sustainable. It also doesn't put enough money to make sure that all qualifying matrics are actually able to get that. This is where our offer of education and free education would come in, because we believe that every single student that's able to get into university should have access to that university. And that would be done if we would have 16 billion of the fiscus being put into NSFAS. We've costed this as a Democratic Alliance. It's something that's possible, and it's something that we want, because it shouldn't be such a difficult situation that every single year our government is unable to plan for the amount of students that are getting get into the university system. And so we have these strikes because more people are there than should be there. We should also be opening up more universities that can actually absorb these people. But until such time that we do, we should be able to be getting those students to be able to have that. The other wonderful thing about having the money in your pocket as students as opposed to the university is that it gives you choice. So if you are in Mthatha and the only university that is there doesn't offer what you want, you're able to actually have the freedom to move to another place that has a university that does have what you want. And that's incredibly important, because then you have students who aren't forced to stay in one geographic locale and aren't being forced by the university to go through a certain stream of things. And so it's very important that we get the funding right, we get the money right for our students, so that we don't have these kinds of strikes. But also it comes down to leadership, and it comes down to leadership of these institutions, like the SASCA president, to call in their students from being able to vandalize and from being able to disturb other students who are actually trying to learn at that time. And in the Democratic Alliance, when we are on campuses, we're able to protest and do just as much work in terms of getting our students into the classroom and into the NSFAS brackets without having to tear down and burn libraries and burn chapels. And in fact, how I got involved in politics was because of the NSFAS crisis that I saw happening at my university at Rhodes, and how I actually petitioned various parties to be able to help young people there. So you don't have to actually be part of a gang of people that is going to be using and vandalizing students. We should be more responsible in that, and we should be courteous of other students that don't want to be disturbed in that respect. And it just comes down to responsibility of leaders and how they lead that institutions. And in fact, what they should be doing is petitioning the people that make those policies, like the ministers, rather than going to the universities, which frankly don't have that much power at the end of the day. Once the money is gone, it's gone. Do you want me to close the statement?
I'm going to allow you another chance to conclude in just a moment, and you can respond to some of that in that conclusion.